All right, and we are live with another episode of Mentor Minutes, a chance for you and other leaders around the world to ask questions about any challenges, obstacles, and just issues that you're facing in day-to-day leadership. I'll take some of the principles and the theories of leadership and try to give you some concrete and simple actions that you can take to improve and get over those hurdles in your day-to-day leadership. So with that said, if you come to this episode late, if you missed the live session over on Facebook, no worries. You can still drop your question down in the comment section. I will get it on the next episode. And if you want to keep things anonymous, you can always email me, cm@cameronmorsey.com, or just direct message me at Facebook. And through email is how I got our first question to the day, kind of anonymously. And it is an individual whose organization only gives out raises in April. Maybe it's a tax thing. I don't know here in the States. But only gives out merit raises in April. And he has an employee who is absolutely fantastic at her job and was hired in January, so didn't get a raise in April, hasn't been with the company for a year, came to him and asked about getting a raise. She is absolutely fantastic, backbone of the organization, doesn't want to lose her. How do you give them this news and maintain her motivation to continue to do well and for goodness sakes keep her within the organization? And it gets into delivering bad news, and there's no way of shying away from this. It is bad news. You are going to disappoint her because you can't give her a raise. And Gauda, Deepika, so good to see you here today. So there's no sense trying to gloss over. One of the big mistakes that people make is they try to deliver bad news and they try to serve it up like it's really good news. And that's just disingenuous. Nobody buys into it, and it's not anything that's going to help out the situation. What's important is that you reinforce that she is doing an absolutely fantastic job. Tell her that she is the backbone of the organization and the department. Give her those sorts of accolades. But let her know in no uncertain terms that raises are given only every April in this organization. For many organizations, it is the end of the year. It's January. That's when you get your pay increases. That's when you get your bonuses, that sort of thing. So any other time of the year, you're not going to get those things. So let her know the facts of the situation. Be transparent as much as possible. But what I also want to do is not necessarily even just to dangle a carrot in front of her, but say that if you want a raise, and the raise isn't necessarily perhaps what she's looking for. Really what you want is you want to continue your career progression. So let's not talk about this 6 months that you wish you had a raise, and I wish I could give you a raise. Let's talk about giving you the career development so that you continue to move onward and upward in the organization, adding skills, giving her special projects so that she can get a raise in April, but then she can get a promotion right after that, which gives her another raise. I tell people all the time, the easiest way to ask for a raise is to get promoted. It is hard to get a raise in most organizations outside of these yearly loops. So make a play that's kind of larger. Talk about career progression and work with her on that. If she is the backbone of your organization, if she is fantastic, and if you see that potential, you owe it to your organization. And quite frankly, it is your job to make sure that she is developing into giving the most that she can to the operation. I hope that helps you out there. Let me know. Ping me. I know I pinged you back that said, let me know if it's not clear what I say in this episode. But if it's not clear, ping me back and we can carry on that discussion. I never have a problem with that. So as we queue up more viewers and listeners on here, if you have any questions, drop them down in the comment section. Any frustrations, issues you're dealing with, hey, second day of this week, you might be facing some things or putting some things off. Ask me about those, and we'll see if we can get you back on track with that. With that said, there was one question that came in after yesterday's episode, and it's from Paul, and it's, how do you deal with those who have been in the business for a while and are stubborn to change? Ty, so good to see you here. When we talk about stubborn to change, one of the big issues as far as change management is concerned is fear of the unknown. Getting into the neuroscience of it, our brains are wired against change because anything that's change is potentially a risk because it's unknown. And the mind stays away from risk and the unknown as much as possible. It's a survival instinct. So you're battling that a little bit. But what you're also battling is the difficulty of change. Change takes effort. And so when you talk about the old guard, when you talk about even executives who are loath to change, that's what happens in a lot of smaller companies, is that the people at the top don't necessarily enjoy or don't want to try something new. They want to keep working what they've been working and what has been successful in the past. That's what they were striving for in the first place. And Stephanie, I mean, you bring it up. The one thing that's constant in life is change. And if you're not changing, then you're not looking at life. You're looking at death, because slowly but surely you will slack off. And that's probably what Paul's seeing in his organization right now. So you want to tackle the unknown first and foremost, and then you want to tackle the difficulty. Those are the two keys. Now, one of them, I say, you know, the unknown, and I let off with that, but really the difficulty is the first thing that you want to tackle. You want to make the change easy. I'm going to pause there for just a second for dramatic effect, Paul. You want to make it easy for them to make the change. That may mean that you do more work. That may be that you volunteer for it. That may be that you do a test beta program first and foremost before you roll it out to everybody else. You find a way to make it easy and painless to get the change in place. Now, along with that comes tackling that unknown. So that may be, it may be completely obvious that you need to go through this particular change. But you will have to present the facts and figures. Do the groundwork, lay it out for them like, I want to say they're school children, for lack of a better term. I worked, almost 20 years ago for a Fortune 500 company. And it was shocking how tried and true and old school they were. They didn't believe in economies of scale as far as call centers were concerned. It took 2 years to get that approved. Call centers and consolidated call centers had been in place for decades prior to this. But I even heard a particular president of a division talk about how there was this new thing of a consolidated call center. No, there wasn't. So there's lots of times where you're going to have to be persistent. It took 2 years. It took over 50 ROI analyses to get it through. So you're going to have to be persistent. You're going to have to lay it out, all of the unknowns as much as possible. And you're also going to need to probably step up to the plate. And I don't consider that a bad thing. Everybody, hey, that's not my job. I shouldn't have to do that. The leader should step up. Yes, you're right. The leader should. But the fact that you step up or volunteer to step up is something that gets you experience. And that's what helps you move onward and upward through the ranks. Mazam has a great comment here. Intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. And that's absolutely the case. Every bit of intelligence that you got through your schooling came about through change. You had to learn something new. Learning is change. From crawling to walking to running to jumping to throwing a javelin, doing the pole vault, whatever that is, that's all change, and it all takes effort. Conquer the fear of the unknown and then tackle the issue of effort by making it easy and painless for them to make a change. And that's going to be what kind of carries you through to this. Mahmoud, good to see you here. If anybody has any questions, any concerns, anything like that, drop them down in the comment section. I will just tackle those as we kind of go along here. All right. The other question that I got offline was tips in regards to giving harsh discipline. And I've dealt with this a couple of times over the last couple of weeks, so I don't know if it's a seasonal thing at the end of summer here in the Northern Hemisphere that discipline's in place. The thing about discipline, and the first thing that we talk about when talking about discipline is that it should not be a surprise. I'm going to say that again. The discipline you give an employee should not be a surprise to them. And so that's the first check. Before you even give discipline, ask yourself whether it's going to be surprising to them. And I don't mean that they're going to be defensive and plead ignorance on it. I mean that you have talked about the policy. You've talked about the expectations. You've followed up and given them feedback. You've given them a mechanism to check their work, that sort of thing. It should not be a surprise to them. And so that's the first thing as far as discipline is concerned. And if it is going to be a surprise, then that's a check for you that you need to be talking about expectations in this area and probably others much more. You need to find a way to communicate how people are doing. That's the other thing is you may communicate expectations, but you don't communicate progress. And if you can't measure how you're doing, then it is a surprise that you weren't doing well. You thought you were doing well, but you had no means of recognizing where that was. So that's a common issue is you're not following up with that. So whether that's weekly emails and reports, whether that's something public that you do, make sure that is out there. Now, what happens is once you have those things in place, those clear expectations, it makes it easier for you to have that conversation. Feedback and discipline is absolutely feedback, or is a part of feedback. Feedback loses its impact the more time that goes beyond the incident and when you give them the feedback, and the less specific the feedback you get. You want it to be timely and you want it to be specific. You need to have those backups, the specific instance, so they know how to apply whatever it is that you're looking to teach them, that you're looking to address as far as the issues are concerned. So make it timely, do it quickly, within the week, within the day, within the hour, preferably, right after you see it. Bring them in and say, hey, just so you know, that way that we do that is not this. The expectation is that you're going to follow this particular procedure. When you give feedback in that regard, it is far more impactful. And discipline, like I say, if you need to discipline somebody same day on a particular incident, then discipline them the same day. It's going to have a much better chance of actually changing that behavior around. That's what actually helps you move the needle from a feedback perspective. Now, what you also want to do with feedback and discipline, and I use the two interchangeably because they are kind of interchangeable, but when you talk discipline, it isn't just about the person and how they broke procedure or how they missed their expectations. It is about you as the leader and how you can help them. So you come up with a plan, you come up with suggestions. Hey, are there tools that I could help you create? Or that you need from me? Is there support that I can give you? How can I help you follow along with this? Because one of the big things is big mistakes with discipline is it's a you versus them sort of thing, and it isn't. It is a teamwork thing. How can you both help this individual meet the expectations, follow procedures, whatever that happens to be? And that is created with a dialogue. So you open up that question. How can I help you? Where do you think the mistake was made here? Where do you think you went off the rails, shall we say, in regards to this particular procedure? How can I help you stay on the rails next time? Do I need to give you daily reminders? What can I do? And part of that is that what you do after the feedback, all right? So you're making it timely. You're making it specific. You're making it a discussion, a dialogue where you see team effort. The last thing that you want to do is after you've given discipline, follow up, preferably 2 or 3 hours later. Hey, just wanted to come by and check. Have you had any of those particular instances that we can help with, or how's it coming along? You go over to them, and even if it's just a chit chat, and that lets them know that they are still safe. All right, you don't want them feeling like they're on the outside. You don't want them ruminating on the issue and having them start thinking that it is a, you versus them sort of thing. So go out to them and offer support 2 or 3 hours after you've given discipline. Let them cool down a little bit, let them think about it just a little bit, and then do a follow-up a few hours later. Okay, that's what's going to help you. And then depending on the plan that you set, and again, I recommend a plan in place in regards to anything discipline related. We have performance improvement plans is what people do right before they fire somebody. I say we do the performance improvement plan the first time you give somebody a verbal warning on something. What is the plan moving forward? And it may be that you follow up a week later with extra statistics to see how they're doing. That you follow up 2 weeks later with more coaching, something along those lines. But you keep that follow-up, and what that does is that makes discipline not one particular event that's negative. It creates and kicks off a cycle of support and development for the employee, and that's discipline done right. Whew. All right. Can't stand people with no common sense. Well, try, common sense is not too terribly common. And, human beings are funny animals. If it wasn't for the, I say, management would be easy if it wasn't for the customers and the employees. And it's that human nature that makes it so difficult. It makes it so interesting when you call out how many people and where they're viewing in from on these particular sessions. You'll get people from Pakistan, from Kenya, from Ghana, from Brazil, from England, from the States. It's all over the world because dealing with people in a leadership setting is very similar. There's differences culturally, economically, whatever else, but that human mindset is difficult to get past. And we can call it common sense. We can also call it experience, is how you might phrase it a little bit more PC. Nagwa says, what if your leaders are rotten and ignorant with the system? So I'll say what's in the back of your head right now, Nagwa, and that is, the two reasons to leave a job. You don't have the ability to move up in the organization, so you can't progress in your career path. And two, you aren't learning and developing anything from your skill in regards to your skill sets. Okay, so if both of those things are in place, if you're don't have the ability to be promoted and you aren't learning anything, then by all means exit. Now, with that being said, there is an opportunity with crummy bosses not to learn necessarily of what not to do from their mistakes, but to step up and step into their role to save your department, but also to build up your skill sets. That's where that second part of leaving kind of almost prohibits you from leaving a bad situation, because oftentimes those are the situations when you're called upon and when you have the opportunity to learn. Now, you have rotten and you have ignorant bosses. So the question is how can you cover for that rottenness? And how can you infuse that ignorance with some information? And it's important that you start developing the skill of being able to get across the information that you want to get across. So here in the States, there was an example in one of the books that I was just reading. I can't remember, it's Culture Code or Radical Change. And it was talking about getting your message across and how that's what matters. And it drew the example of the Great Depression here in the States. Franklin Delano Roosevelt and John Maynard Keynes was the great economist. But Keynes could not convince Roosevelt to take a particular course of action that would have ended the Great Depression earlier, so the theories say. And so the question is it doesn't matter how eminent you are in a particular field, how much knowledge you have, how good your idea is. If you can't sell it to the person that ultimately makes the decision, you might as well not have any of that knowledge in the first place. And so that's one of those things that kind of was a light bulb moment for me that I hadn't actually considered, in the importance of being able to persuade others to be able to talk in a way that they understand. So we talk rotten and ignorant. And the first place that we talk about with bosses and trying to get your ideas through to them is make sure you are in touch with what they care about. You want to talk in terms of the metrics that they care about. Do they care about revenue? Do they care about costs? Do they care about profit? Do they care about customer satisfaction? Do they care about how big the organization gets? Some people just want big organizations. So you want to phrase your ideas, your issues, the problems in a way that addresses those particular areas. Now, getting back to the common sense is not so common comment from up above. These things might not be obvious to the executives. Hey, they might be obvious to you, but call it out. Hey, if we do a little bit more training in this area, they will be able to broaden out the things that they talk about with the customers, which will increase our revenue. If they care about revenue and revenue increases. So you talk in ways that addresses those concerns, okay? So get used to communicating and covering for your bosses. Newsflash for you, you are not going to have a great boss most of the time throughout your career. I know that's not a surprise to most everybody that's out there. You're usually going to have a boss that is standard or substandard. And that's just the nature of the beast. I hate to say it, and part of that is just perception on your part. So you need to get used to being able to deal with them, cover for their weaknesses. Hey, even great leaders, the greatest leaders out there, have tons of weaknesses and tons of areas that they need to improve upon. It's your role as an employee to step into those, help them so it's not as much of a weakness, magnify any sort of strengths that they have, and talk to them in a way that helps them see your point of view and see the solution that you have out there. I know that's kind of long-winded, Nagwa, but hey, it's good for everybody out there to understand that and to be familiar with what they need to do, and to talk to bosses in a way that actually helps them understand the position that you have on things. So if you have any questions out there, I'm going to go into about a 10-second spiel here at the end to give you a chance to throw your question down. So if you have a question, now is the time to ask it. I love to have people jump on my podcast, either on iTunes or over on SoundCloud. I'll post the links up here to have you take those. It's just an opportunity. I do these sessions, A, to answer any questions that are out there first and foremost. But B, I think there's an extraordinary amount of value that you can get from these for just giving your mind some leadership exercise. You might not have been, you don't have any application for any of the questions that went on today, but some of the principles that we talked about do have correlations with some of the issues that you're facing. And hey, who's not to say you're not going to deal with an issue just like one of these here in the future? So listening to these is just a great little exercise on your commute into work, however that is. I think it's an opportunity for you. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always email me, cm@cameronmorrissey.com, direct message me on Facebook. I will keep you anonymous. And if you are coming to this late, you can always drop down and get your question in, and I will get it on the next episode of Mentor Minutes. But with that said, I will let everybody get back to their Tuesday afternoon here in the States and their Wednesday morning over on the other side of the date line. Tiffany has one for us, and it's thoughts on engaging negative employees and coaching the supervisor as a manager. So I like that, engaging negative employees. The first thing is to keep engaging, Tiffany. What happens a lot of times is you have a negative employee, and what do? You separate from them. You distance yourself from them because you don't want to be exposed to that negativity. But what you need to do is you need to actually lean in just a little bit more. You don't want to encourage their behavior with extra attention necessarily, but you do want to have maybe more thoughtful conversations with them as opposed to, hey, how about that weather today? So have a little bit more. Hey, anything going on? Any particular problems you have with the system today? Any particular trouble spots that you'd like me to help with? How can I help you do something better? So have a little bit more thoughtful conversations with them. The other thing that you want to do with those conversations is you want to start explaining the why. So much of negativity amongst employees comes from the fact that they don't understand why you do what you do. I mean, that's a huge issue. Is that disconnect where they don't know why it is that you do what you do. And so what you do is when you tell them to do something, when you give them a directive, when you make a suggestion, you simply add on, because it will help us with blank. Just because. It's a simple sentence fragment that you add in. And what that does is that gives them context. It allows you to impart a little bit of importance, which helps them prioritize what's going on. And that cuts down on a lot of that negativity. Okay, so the big thing is leaning back in to them, engaging with them, as you say, adding in the reason for your decisions, adding in that why. So that can be huge. But also, what I want you to do is I want you to do the same thing to the people around them. So I want you to engage with the people around them a little bit better. I want you to impart the why behind your decisions to them. What you're doing is you are inoculating the people around this negative person from their negativity. You want to be in a situation, Tiffany, where when this negative person says, you know what, Tiffany is completely off her rocker. I have no idea why she's doing this. And the other person is sitting there going, what do you mean? Tiffany's always great in that. She's doing this because of such and such. And she told me that. That's what you want. You want them to have that sort of natural inoculation against that negativity. So hit the why up with your negative employee. Make sure that you're addressing that, and then inoculate those people around them with a little bit more attention and with whys as well. Now, as far as coaching the supervisor as a manager, you want to focus on team metrics as much as possible. That's what you want to talk about. Because the difference between a line level employee and a manager is that the manager gets all of their productivity from other people. It almost doesn't matter how much they are able to do themselves. It matters what they're able to elicit from their team. That's where the production comes from. So you want to be talking about team metrics as much as possible. But what you also want to do is you want to impart on them the importance of communication. They need to be engaging with their team on a regular, daily, if not hourly basis. All right, how can I help you do a better job? What's going right? What's going wrong? What are the issues that are out there? They are there to help the team perform better. All right, it's not that I'm going to mess up the quote, not that they have, people carrying water for them. It's that they are serving water to their team. So they are in the process of making sure that their team is working at maximum effectiveness. And the only way they can do that really is by talking to them. So your discussion points with your supervisors are about team metrics, how their team is doing as a whole, not how they are doing necessarily, and then talking about communication and how they are engaging the team to get those results that you're looking for. Hope that helps out. Great questions, Tiffany. Marsh has the next question. It's how does a manager handle an employee that shows a lot of promise but struggles with mental issues such as PTSD, anxiety, bipolar, without being a therapist? Yeah, that's you start walking a fine line there. But what you want to do is you want to call it out into the open as much as possible. And by out in the open, that's between you and the employee. All right, you want to have frank conversations on what you need to do to support them. All right, they are absolutely fantastic. That's great. But they're going to have these trip-ups that happen. And it happens without mental issues. It happens to other people with regards to life issues and things like that, where there's something that trips them up. Your role is to support them. All right, so however that is, whether that is them taking an extra day off, whether that is them leaving early, whether that is them calling in late or something like that, whatever that is, you are there to support them. All right, now you can, there's limits to what you can do. Obviously, as you say, you're not a therapist. So tackling the root of things isn't necessarily in your purview, but you can recommend a therapist. If you're part of large corporations, often have those that are available at mental health, options that are available for mental health support. I know I did that ages ago. It was the premarital counseling 2 decades ago or something I took through the company for free. Great. And so, avail yourself of those options, but you can also just do a little research on your own and say, hey, I can absolutely give you a day off. I can give you a half day, whatever that is. But what I think you might want to do is have somebody with more experience than me talk you through some of these issues. I pulled up a list of these people. Again, you're having very frank conversations. And what that does is that takes the anxiety out of the situation. It takes some of those unknowns out of the situation so that you can have a freer conversation. It de-stresses that a little bit, and hopefully you can make some progress with that, Marsha. I hope that helps out. Tough situation, but one that is not uncommon. You're going to, leaders out there, if you haven't dealt with this sort of thing yet, you will, because it's only a matter of time as you get exposed to more and more people. You're going to have people that are going through stuff. And so you need to be there to support them wherever possible. And that's just part of being fair. It may be that this person gets an extra day off. Okay, fine. I wish I could give everybody a day off, but they don't have the reason. And thank goodness they don't have the reason that this person has. And so that's the not cookie cutter way of leading, but the fair way and the beneficial way for the entire organization. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. If you came into this episode late, you can always go back to the beginning. There's some good stuff in this one today. Great questions to deal with today. And of course, if you have any other questions, you can always drop them in the comments or private message me or email me, and I will talk to you in the next episode of Mentor Minutes. Everybody take care out there. Bye-bye.